In this fifth episode, we will begin to explore the basics of the integrated theory of consciousness. It has 25 properties that define the theory. As mentioned in episode 2, the book of the same name is extremely scientific and covers these principles in great detail. Genesis 3.0 also discusses them, but with less depth and scientific detail. Tell us about the theory of the integrated theory of consciousness.
The term integrated means that we're bringing a lot of information together accumulatively to form a higher understanding of consciousness. And it's based on the premise that everything in the universe is interconnected, that everything is interconnected, interrelated. Anything that appears like a separation is our mind trying to split things up so that we can understand them better. And we do this in the book too, but again, it needs to be known that everything is integrated. That is the most primary concept you've got to remember. Okay, now the physicist would say that everything in our universe can be explained on the basis of matter, energy, space, and time. 4 properties, I would say. And as I said it before, that is incomplete because consciousness and intelligence, which are 2 properties of the same substance, I use 2 words to refer to it because consciousness is intelligent, and being intelligent requires consciousness. They're totally interrelated. So the division that we place between the 2 is an artificial division. Since consciousness and intelligence are primary properties of the universe as described in the integrated theory of consciousness, which is different than what science currently acknowledges. That sets it apart as being different. So we've got 6 properties that explain everything in the universe rather than 4. And the integrated theory of consciousness is a list of 25 properties that are incorporated into this overall formulation of what consciousness represents. For instance, free will. That's part of consciousness, as I understand it, and many people believe, as I believe fervently, that free will is a real thing, that we're not robots making choices because the electrical chemicals in my brain are arranged in such a way that they cause urges that make me want to then do something. So it's a book, a theory, which I present as a scientific theory, even though there's no way to currently test the properties as I have outlined them in a rigorous way defined by science. It falls very much in line with strongly believed spiritual principles if you accept that as part of our reality. But since science doesn't, science isn't going to really jump on this and say, oh yeah, I never thought of that. That's a good thing. Yeah, I can see why that's part of consciousness. But if you had a really high level superconsciousness experience, you see how all of these things fit together. And that's what I've tried to do, is bring back all of the thoughts that I was aware of in my superconsciousness state, which amnesia, as I indicated, erased most of what I had experienced during that 6-hour period when I had the experience. Through hours and hours and hours of meditation over many months, I brought back bits and pieces and then put them together like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. And by the time I was finished, I had this rich mosaic of what consciousness is. I guess what I'm saying is I'm presenting this integrated theory for eventual proof. What's going to be the proof? when enough information is assembled in the future to show how all of these things interrelate to produce this complex concept of consciousness.
So
And
is this compilation of information, is it more people having the experience, whether natural or drug induced, or is it science being able to catch up to prove it that way?
combination of all of that. I think that science is catching up to it. Some of the things that I put into the theory 44 years ago, actually longer than that, but that was when it was first published. Uh, a lot of those things are also becoming mainstream, or at least very close to mainstream. More and more scientists who have had spiritual experiences are saying the same thing. Okay, one thing in particular, panpsychism, that is a term that's goes back at least 20 years, probably longer than that, but it started to become something that some scientists, more spiritually oriented scientists, were thinking about, which which states that consciousness permeates everything, all life forms and all non-life forms. Everything in the universe has some element of consciousness. It doesn't mean that a fruit fly has awareness like a human does. Uh, Primary primates come pretty close, some of them very close. We've been able to teach sign language to some primates where we can actually have a conversation with them. They can express themselves and we can understand what they're saying. We can express ourselves with sign language and they can understand what we're saying. Same thing with other animals, maybe to a lesser extent, but not far off. I think dogs. I think dogs can understand a lot of verbal uh, uh, expressions. It's something that we need to pay attention to and raise the question, can animals really experience things not like humans, but as a dog experiences being a dog? And I think that animals are evolving with increasing consciousness intelligence just as humans are. And I have absolutely no doubt that humankind is becoming more highly conscious and more highly intelligent. And there are things which would give credence to that idea. IQ, for instance, the Army has been studying recruits for 100 plus years now. And it's been found not only in the military, but in civilian studies as well, that comparing IQ tests with those that have been given incrementally over the last 100 plus years, every 10 or 20 years, there is a jump in the measurement of IQ throughout the human population. There's no question that IQ is getting higher and higher uh, as we go on. And there are more people having increasing levels of consciousness with the experience of superconsciousness states. And so putting it all together with what science has come up with, well, science plus spiritual occurrences, I think is a very strong indication that we are truly getting more intelligent and more highly conscious as we progress and evolve. I can see a big change in what has happened in my lifetime as far as people becoming more intelligent, as far as being able to express themselves. Now, there are those who would say that, well, this is just culture expanding or evolving. And I say, yeah, that's part of it, but that's more of a reflection of our ability to experience higher levels of intelligence and consciousness. And since everybody is doing this, this is the way the universal mind or cosmic consciousness continuously expands. This is how, if a few people come up with the concept, okay, uh, Isaac Newton and Leibniz, I forget his first name, both came up with calculus almost simultaneously. Uh, Newton gets most of the credit, but Leibniz did it as well. Radio was invented by two different people at approximately the same time. Once the idea is out there, then it's easier for somebody to come along, put thoughts together, and receive that same concept. So when Einstein first came out with his general theory of gravity, there were less than a handful of people that really could understand what he was talking about. Arthur Eddington, who was an astronomer in Britain, was maybe the first one who was able to comprehend what Einstein was saying when he defined his general theory of relativity. And he was the first one who came along and found a way to test Einstein's theory. He did it during an eclipse of the sun, where he was able to take pictures of where stars were around the sun, and you couldn't see them when the sun was right directly in front of the stars around the penumbra of the sun, because too much glare was hiding these stars. When the moon moved over the sun and blocked out the light coming from the main body, from the sun itself, you could see that where the stars were, that the sun was hiding. When the sun moved out of the way, he was able to first take pictures of where these stars were when the moon was blocking out the sunlight, so you could see where they were in close proximity to the perimeter of the sun. And then when the sun moved out of the way, took another picture, and you could see how the stars had changed their apparent location, which was the result of Einstein talking about the bending of photons as they're traveling through space by the gravitational pull on photons. And so as the photons from the stars behind the sun were coming around and curving around the sun, we were getting the tail end of the direction that these photons were coming to us. And so we were seeing the last part of the bending, which looked like it was coming from here rather than from here. And so Einstein was able to predict from his general theory how much difference there should be in this bending of light by the degree of gravitational force that was there. And by Arthur Eddington doing this experiment, he proved that Einstein's theory about gravity bending photons was a valid thing. And not only was it valid, it was the mathematics that Einstein developed predicting how much bending there was right on, or so close to being right on that it was very acceptable. And so once the idea is out there and a few people get it, then more people are thinking about it, expanding the memory in universal mind or cosmic consciousness, and it becomes more accessible to more people.
And so this is how the integrated theory of consciousness will be proven or understood by people, because the ideas will be out there,
yeah,
and more people will understand it and be able to prove it.
I think there's enough evidence right now to know that what I'm talking about makes sense. But as time goes on, there'll be other things which will point in the same direction, and eventually we'll get the idea or gain the understanding that, oh yeah, memory is not recorded in the brain matter as science would now tell us, neuroscience in particular. It's being recorded in space, and it's being recorded holographically. So Neil Armstrong on Earth can go to the moon and still have the same memories that he had on Earth, even though he's 250,000 miles away from where he recorded the memories. And it doesn't matter where he goes, because memory is deposited holographically. He'll get them anywhere. But the more people that record similar thoughts, the more accessible it comes to other people who can put those same thoughts together in the same way that the original thinkers were able to put it together. And it builds upon itself. The more people that have the concept, the easier it is for more people to gain that same concept.
Which makes it the perfect time for Genesis 3.0 to be released.
Yeah. And I mean, this is this is, other people have got this in their mind, but they really haven't put it together. Why does this require the expansion of space? So we can we have more volume of space to record our memories into. So the universe is getting smarter and smarter and smarter as time goes on, because we are getting smarter, depositing more memories, and it just mushrooms. And I think that the evidence supports this conjecture.
All right, what an exciting concept. Thank you very much.